Welcome to Lesson 8 on medical specialties, anatomical position, body planes, cavities, and abdominal divisions. We begin on page 1 by correlating major medical specialties with their corresponding anatomical systems. Notice the arrows pointing to each specialty and system as we narrate. Dermatology specializes in the integumentary system, covering skin and its appendages. Orthopedics and orthopedic surgery treat the musculoskeletal system, including bones and joints. Endocrinology focuses on the endocrine system and metabolic hormones. Cardiology addresses the cardiovascular system, while hematology specializes in blood and hematic disorders. Immunology treats the lymphatic system and immune defenses. In the respiratory system, pulmonology and thoracic surgery manage airway and lung disorders. Gastroenterology and proctology treat the digestive system. Urology covers the urinary system, as well as the male reproductive system, whereas gynecology and obstetrics specialize in the female reproductive system. Finally, neurology and neurosurgery manage the nervous system, ophthalmology focuses on the eye, and otorhinolaryngology treats the ear, nose, and throat.
Moving to slide 2 from page 2 of our lesson. Observe the arrows pointing to the anatomical position and the sagittal plane. The anatomical position is the universal standard reference used when describing positions and relationships of structures in the human body. In this posture, the individual is standing erect, with arms at the side of the body, palms facing forward anteriorly, eyes looking straight forward, legs parallel, and feet and toes pointing forward. We also use body planes to assist in describing the body and its parts. There are 3 primary planes. First is the sagittal plane, also called the median plane. This is a vertical plane that runs lengthwise from front to back, dividing the body into left and right portions. A cut along the sagittal plane yields a sagittal section, allowing clinicians and anatomists to examine lateral and medial relationships. On slide 3, follow the arrows as we examine the remaining body planes from page 3. The frontal plane and the transverse plane. The frontal plane, also called the coronal plane, is a vertical plane running lengthwise from side to side. It divides the body into front and back positions, known as anterior and posterior portions. A cut along this plane yields a frontal or coronal section. The transverse plane, also called the horizontal plane, is a crosswise plane that runs parallel to the ground. It divides the body into upper and lower portions, or superior and inferior regions. We also differentiate between 2 specific anatomical slices. A cross-section is produced by a slice perpendicular to the long axis of a structure, whereas a longitudinal section is produced by a lengthwise slice along the long axis of a structure. Slide 4 covers the anatomical body regions from page 4 of our lesson. Watch the arrows pointing to each body region. Clinicians use these specific Latin-derived terms to identify precise locations on the human body. Among the major body regions, cephalic refers to the head, cervical refers to the neck, brachial refers to the arm, and crural refers to the leg. When examining the trunk of the body, we divide it into anterior and posterior regions. The anterior trunk includes the thoracic region, or chest, the abdominal region, or belly, the pelvic region, and the pubic region, which houses the genitals. The posterior trunk includes the dorsum, or back, the vertebral region overlying the spinal column, and the gluteal region comprising the buttocks. On slide 5, from page 5, we study body cavities. The human body is not a solid structure. Instead, it contains several internal open spaces, or cavities, that protect and cushion vital organs. Observe the arrows indicating the 2 dorsal cavities and the 2 ventral cavities listed on the slide. First, let us list the 2 dorsal cavities located on the posterior side of the body. Number 1 is the cranial cavity, which is encased by the skull and contains the brain. Number 2 is the spinal cavity, which runs through the vertebral column and contains the spinal cord. Next, moving to the anterior or ventral side of the body, before starting with the thoracic cavity, it is important to mention that there are 2 ventral cavities, which are number 1, the thoracic cavity, and number 2, the abdominopelvic cavity. Now let us examine the superior ventral cavity, the thoracic cavity. The thoracic cavity contains the 2 lungs and a central region known as the central mediastinum. The mediastinum is an essential compartment that houses the heart, the aorta, the esophagus, the trachea, and the thymus gland. Slide 6 covers the abdominopelvic cavity and viscera encased in sac from page 6. Follow the arrows pointing to the cavity divisions and visceral membranes. The abdominopelvic cavity is separated from the superior thoracic cavity by the muscular diaphragm. It is subdivided into the superior abdominal cavity and the inferior pelvic cavity, containing the digestive, excretory, and reproductive organs. Importantly, internal organs, known as viscera, are encased in a double-layered membranous sac that reduces friction. The outer layer is called the parietal layer, which lines the walls of the cavities. The inner layer is called the visceral layer, which adheres directly to and contacts the viscera. This protective double-layered sac is called the pleura in the thoracic cavity around the lungs, and the peritoneum in the abdominopelvic cavity. On slide 7 from page 7, follow the arrows as we study the subdivisions of the pleura and the 9 anatomical divisions of the abdomen. Within the thoracic cavity, the subdivisions include the pleural cavity, which contains the lungs, and the pericardial cavity, which encloses the heart. To accurately locate organs and clinical findings in the abdomen, anatomists divide the abdomen into a 9-region grid, formed by 2 horizontal and 2 vertical planes. In the upper row, we have the right and left hypochondriac regions on the sides, and the center epigastric region over the stomach. In the middle row, we have the right and left lumbar regions, and the center umbilical region surrounding the navel. In the lower row, we have the right and left inguinal regions, also called iliac regions, and the center hypogastric region. We conclude on slide 8 from page 8 with the clinical divisions of the abdomen. Observe the arrows pointing to each clinical quadrant and organ. For clinical examinations and diagnosis of abdominal pain, physicians divide the abdomen into 4 quadrants, intersecting at the umbilicus. In the right upper quadrant, or RUQ, we find the majority of the liver, the gallbladder, a small portion of the pancreas, and loops of the small intestine and colon. In the left upper quadrant, or LUQ, we find the spleen, the stomach, the majority of the pancreas, a small portion of the liver and intestine. In the right lower quadrant, or RLQ, we find the clinically vital appendix, the right ureter, and in females, the right ovary and fallopian tube. Finally, in the left lower quadrant, or LLQ, we find the left ovary and fallopian tube, left ureter, small intestine, and descending colon.